We are finally getting ready to do our biggest upgrade to our 2024 Alliance Valor that we are ever going to do. It's time to get our solar and lithium system powered by Big Beard batteries installed. Now, before we dive into the actual installation process, what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually go over a bunch of different systems. So with that being said, let's go inside and find Todd. All right, well, we have pulled in my good buddy, Mr. Todd.
My good buddy, I got you. Well, hey, it's good to be here. It's been almost a year since I've seen you, so.
No, it hasn't.
No, I hadn't. Well, because we haven't revealed anything yet.
Oh yeah, it's been a year. It's been almost a year.
Been almost a year. All right, what are we talking about today?
So we were just kind of getting going, but I wanted to go back and talk about the old system on the old rig and kind of why we picked it.
All right.
So we came to you after you tortured me in a field.
Kind of show you what it would be like.
And I had my little lead acid battery, and I sweated a lot.
Right.
I lost some weight that week, so that was good.
Right. And you went through all the machinations trying to use a generator, figuring out that certain hours cost, you having to run and go get fuel, coming back.
And you told me something that this is going to be a never-ending process because solar is a little addictive like some other things are.
Right.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Back again.
Back again for another build.
So we went, that original system, we went with a dual multi-plus.
Yeah. It's a pretty beefy system.
It was, and then we did 6 of your, at the time, 280 amp hour batteries. So we had right around 1,800 amp hours.
Yes.
1,800 watts on the roof is, I think, what we could fit.
Yeah.
So what, at the end of the day, I know what I could do on that system, but what is that system really designed for?
Okay. So usually when I'm consulting with, a potential customer or someone says, hey, Todd, I want solar, everything's going to be about supply and demand, right? If we look at electricity, there's only so much electricity that we're harvesting, whether it's going to be solar panels, storing, which is going to be batteries, or maybe a generator, right? That would be your supply, and then you got your demand. What do you turn on, right? And I always try and break it down to the simplest form, and that is, what is the biggest appliance you want to run?
Right.
That lets me know a couple things. One, that lets me know the size of the inverter needed to be able to push that much wattage or amperage, however you want to look at it. Right? And then from there, how long do you want to run it? That would be where my solar panels come in and batteries come in. So with your system, we did a double multi-plus. Now, the multi-plus 3000s provide about 2,400 watts continuous amount of power. Well, your air conditioner is actually set up on a 20 amp breaker.
Yes.
Right? And the 20 amp breaker at 120 volts, about 2,400 watts. Right. Not saying your air conditioner is always going to consume that, but there are times when it can peak at that. So I typically go, to the client or whichever and say, hey, what do you envision yourself doing? Right. What do you need to run, in order to RV comfortably?
Which for us at that time was really, I'd love to run my bedroom AC kind of overnight.
Yeah.
And then when that's not on, be able to run a few other things like the microwave and kind of...
The refrigerator, which is always on.
Which we had a residential at that time, which has a tendency to pull a little bit more in my understanding, right?
Between 400 and 600 watts, yes.
Right, but if that's on a dedicated line, you want your refrigerator on the whole time. Now you're down. If you're running at a 2400 constant,
and the refrigerator,
you're done. That's it. So if your microwave happens to be on that line, you have to kill it. So fast forward to why we're actually here.
Right.
We, Lauren and I, may have had a problem with something called an overload alarm.
Yeah, and this is kind of common. Right. Again, where you have a pretty decent sized system, about 4,800 watts, but there's all these different factors. Right. Refrigerator, microwave, heat. The hotter it is outside, the more these air conditioners can consume, the less you get to use other places.
And we are Texans, so we use AC a lot.
And you like cold.
I do like cold.
The average sized individual likes it cold. The super skinny people, to them cold is 80 degrees. They can get by with, a multi-plus and run that. But an average sized individual, we would like 72.
68.
So, the lower the temperature you set, the longer that's going to run, the more it demands. Right. So, you guys were running into what we call overload, and that's where the inverter will do for a short amount of time, 120%. But after a while, it says, hey, look, I can't keep this going.
Yeah. And then it'll start shedding loads, essentially, and that's when everything
overloads. It'll shut down.
Yeah. And then I should shed loads.
Yes.
And that's what we had to do, which is fine. Kind of. You don't want to do it too much, obviously. It's not great for the inverter to keep pushing it to its limits. It's kind of like your car, right? You don't want to redline the dang thing the whole time.
Well, when it shuts off, it actually auto starts back up after so long. Right? And after the third time, it completely shuts down and says, look, I've got to protect myself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost smarter than us.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
We switched sides.
Yeah.
And now we're over here for some reason.
Yeah.
So when you... All right, buddy. So when you have someone new and you're talking to them about...
New to what? This Earth or new to...
Potentially.
RV?
And if you're talking to them, it's like, do you want a battery? Because they're brand new.
When I'm talking to a potential customer.
Yeah, someone comes in and they really kind of go, well, I want to get something.
Okay.
Where do you... I know we talked about starting kind of with what they want to run.
Okay. So let's say it's someone who wants to begin to transition over to lithium or solar,
right?
You know, taking the power with them. You're asking where's the best place to start if there's a limited budget.
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
Why not?
So yeah, that would be really converting over the batteries. And let me first explain. Batteries, the way they're designed, right? We have stored energy in there, and with your lead acid gel and AGM, well, they're jogger type batteries. They can't handle heavy loads.
Right.
And what we're wanting to do eventually is to take the power with us. So we want to run huge loads like the air conditioner or whatnot. So you got your workhorse, which is your engine, your inverter. But now we have our batteries. Now the batteries are what provide the power to the inverter.
Okay.
Right. In order to get stuff going. So typically on a, something like where they want to switch over, can't afford the whole system. First place we may start is switching over to the batteries. So that way.
So essentially you're systematically built, almost like phases.
Right. Because if you start with the inverter first and you put that in, okay, but that doesn't give anything to the customer. They say, okay, now I have an inverter in the RV, but what's it doing for me? Because I still have lead acid batteries. They can do a little bit. Right. But you run the potential of really ruining them.
Gotcha.
Should you try and turn on the air conditioner? Because they're just going to go, what?
Yeah, and freak out.
Right. So, yeah, start off with the batteries in there. The consideration with lithium batteries, you got to have a sufficient charger. They have small chargers, very inexpensive, all the way up to the inverter charger itself. So, yeah, you start off with the battery typically.
Okay. So from there, you've built out some batteries for somebody. They're starting to kind of put together their system in phases. Now we're talking about what do we want to run? Yeah. And size of system, essentially, right? So they're kind of got a decent starting point one way or another, because I know you have a couple of battery options now, not just the one that we used to. For starters, the 280 no longer exists, right? Right. 280 amp hours, sorry. Right. So now it's a 300 amp hours.
It's a 300 amp hour.
And there's a new big boy.
Yeah, so
bigger boy.
Here's the thing is, we're looking at, when it comes to batteries, the more batteries you have, the harder it is to make them all work as one. Just think of herding cats, right? The more cats you have, trying to get them all lined up to do the same thing, it's not going to happen.
Or RV Unplugged contestants.
There we go, right? If we just had one contestant, it'd be easy. I wouldn't even need this guy, right? Awesome. But the more you have. So there's a lot of people that says, I want to run everything. I want a larger demand. And so therefore we go with a larger battery, a 24 volt. Yep. Now, I'll tell you, in the residential space, we go with a 48 volt because it is a huge demand that we're looking for. And so the larger the battery, the fewer batteries we need, the less balancing issues we have.
Gotcha.
So, in the RV space right now, we have 12 and 24 volts. There are some out there that are 48 volts, but space begins to be a factor with that. So we offer two different offerings. There's the 12 volt, and this is actually our third adjustment to it. And now we have the 24 volt, which is what we're going to put in your system.
Right. Spoiler.
Yeah. So you can take that part out.
Is there? No, you're fine. Is there a line where you say, hey, we should really, like, as far as quantity of 12 volt, where you go, hey, we should really consider looking at 24 volt now because of the number of batteries at 12 volt we're going to put in?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to ask the customer what they're, if it's a motor coach and they still want the ability for their coach batteries to start the engine in the event that their starter battery fails, then we'll probably want to still tend to stick with the 12 volts. Okay. So that way I can use the relay to go ahead and send that over.
Gotcha.
Space, but quite honestly, I go through it with them. I said, look, here's a 12 volt version, 4 batteries, for this build. Here's a 24 volt version, 2 batteries. It's the same exact power, same exact cost. Right. Right. Which do you prefer? Because quite honestly, it's really up to the individual. There's some nominal reasons why you would switch over. But for me, the main thing is the number of batteries, long-term balancing issues. I want to switch over to 24 volts as soon as possible.
And in addition to that, the physical footprint. Obviously a 24 volt battery is 300 amp hours.
Yes.
So same amp hours, not really, but kind of the same, because your voltage is higher. Yeah. On the 24
but
volt.
it'd be equivalent to 2 12 volt batteries.
Right. And so when you think about a footprint, like 2 12 volt batteries, you could line up like this. And so if you're trying to make like a shotgun run in your pass through, like if you're in a travel trailer, right, for instance, that might actually work better for you because you have a little bit more room to work with. So I know that you want to build a system around the electronic side consumption, but space in an RV is a real
always
thing too.
Give and take. There's always give and take. Absolutely.
Like for me, I said, I don't care, put it in.
Right.
And then we just do what's the best for the coach and the consumption and all of those things.
We look at weight, pin weight, hitch weight, everything that we're trying to do. We'd like to get it closer to the axles to have the axles actually.
So not where we're putting it in mine.
Right, not where we're putting it in yours, right? But I mean, typically with fifth wheels, they put all the storage up front.
Right, that's just the way it is, especially toy haulers.
Yeah.
So an entry-level system, is that like a single multi-plus, and some of that depends on if there's a lot of loaded, I know I just asked a question and just passed through. Yeah.
Sure.
But there's a lot of loaded answers and questions when it comes to this stuff, because is it a 30 amp coach? Is it a 50 amp coach?
Right.
Is it a travel trailer? Is it a fifth wheel? Is it a toy hauler? Is it a motorhome? Is it a Class C? I mean, space becomes such a thing in what these RVs actually use, because like Alliance, as an example, uses a lot of 12 volt systems, which is great.
Actually, almost all RVs use a 12 volt system.
Well, they use a 12 volt system, but Alliance has gone out of their way to use more components on 12 volt. Like the TVs,
more components.
They always use a 12 volt fridge.
Yes.
They don't really use residential stuff for the reason of, because you can run that stuff without an inverter off of battery systems.
Right.
And so like for us, like I know when we install our new system and we're looking at our little GX Touch, my DC consumption is going to be a lot higher on this coach than it was on my previous coach.
Right.
Simply because of that, which is kind of nice because now it gets rid of some of the load off the inverter. And so hypothetically, I might not have to go massive if I was just looking to run one AC or something like that.
Well, you also get more efficiency. If I don't have to change the voltage from 12 to 120 or 24 to 120, then there's no power factor. I'm not consuming power to change it. Right. So 12 volt appliance to a 12 volt battery, 100% efficiency almost.
Right.
Other than, of course, the distance and whatnot.
Gotcha.
So more efficient, get a little bit more out of it. My battery is capable, one battery is capable of running that air conditioner. Right. But we're running it nearly at 100%.
Right.
And I always look at it just like anything else. The way I teach is, you can sprint so fast. Do you want to sprint all the time?
Okay.
Right. And you can't sprint near as far as you can jogging. Right.
Right.
So while one battery can do it, right, you don't want to rely just on one battery to get you through that because it's running at nearly 100%.
Okay.
Capacity. So minimum would be probably 2 batteries, which would be equivalent to 6 regular, lithium batteries when they first came out, 100 amp hours. I mean, the reason why we went big, again, all about using fewer batteries.
Right.
Right. Less balancing issues. So 2 of those and an inverter, they can get you pretty far. They can get you about 4.5, 5 hours of continuous use.
In a little bit of preview, we're going to talk about the new system that's going in. And if you have been paying attention, it's actually right behind us.
Yeah, the video, I'm blocking it.
Yeah, it's another total eclipse. So the next video you guys will see is actually kind of the install and some consumption stuff after we fire the whole thing up.
Yeah.
And everything Todd's talking about, the real life version of it, we'll show the GX Touch as things happen, and so that you guys can really see how it all works in one night. And every time we turn on something, use something, we'll talk about where we started, where we ended, and kind of how it worked throughout that process. So, but the big bad boy, the Big Daddy system.
Yeah.
That's a different level of consideration because obviously cost is a real thing. I mean, these things aren't cheap.
No.
When you get to this size, but
I can also even factor that from a ROI, your return on investment.
Sure.
I mean, if you're going to put in a solar system, what you're giving up, or what you're gaining from that is the ability not to have to be relegated to an RV park.
Right.
And the average overnight stay in an RV park, typically between $45 and $65 a night. So what you do is you take your total cost of whatever it costs to put the system in, divide that by your overnight stays. That tells you how much you'll save. And typically on a system, the mid-level system, year and a half.
Yeah.
Huge system, 2 years.
Yeah. Well, another thing too is, and we'll get into what we're putting in just a second, but a system like this for us is because we have a year-round site in Texas no matter what, because we come back here for Lauren's job and we love Todd.
And it's Texas.
And it's Texas. Why would you want to go anywhere else?
Best country in the world.
You can be in an RV park or a full-time site, whether it's your own property or somebody else's. Typically at that scenario, you're paying for your electricity.
Right.
And so there is a secondary savings potentially there as well. It's slower than if you just are like doing weekly stays and that kind of a thing. But the ability to turn that pedestal off and then in extreme scenarios, just go turn it back on, charge back up, get you on a beat, turn it back off, kind of a thing.
Certain places, they not only charge you for the site, but they also charge you for the electricity.
Yep, for longer stay stuff.
Yeah,
that kind of
prioritize that to use the batteries and the solar first.
Yep.
And then pick from there. I mean, for us, it was all about, you know, RV parks, everything else, losing power, coming back on, losing power, coming back on. Oh, that's annoying as hell. So anyway, yeah, so the convenience.
And that's a great example because the Victron components is what we're going back with, and you have a tendency to lean very heavily to the Victron stuff because it's good.
Yeah.
It transitions so fast that you notice the transition, but hardly. Have you ever been in your house and you get that kind of power blip and you're like, what was that? And you don't really know what happened? That's kind of how it is.
Yeah, it's 1/20th of a second on average.
Yeah.
Is what it takes to switch over. And it's the very small devices that kind of catch it. Your lights.
Yeah.
Your TV won't catch it. Your computer won't catch it. Yeah. You know, your air conditioners won't catch it.
Just enough to make you question your sanity, essentially, is what we're talking about.
Was there a blink? Okay.
So I'm going to tell you a little story because I haven't told you this yet. We had a storm come through late last year. We were in our other rig.
Yeah.
And the system was on. I say it was on. We were in pass through because we were on 50 amp.
Right.
And some high winds came through, and a tree down the road knocked into a transformer.
Yeah.
Park lost power. I had no idea for 2.5 hours. None.
Yeah.
We walked outside to go, I don't know, we all walked the dog, something, and everyone's outside with flashlights. All of a sudden you hear a generator in the distance and all that. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, the power's out. And then one of our ACs kicked on and they all stared at us. Oops. For them. But it's redundancy in addition to that. And so if you've got like a medical condition or something where you have to have power, regardless of whether you're going off grid or you're not going off grid,
or if you have a job where you're telecommuting, and it's absolutely necessary to have power.
So there's a lot of benefits to putting in a system, especially a robust system. So there is some ability to have some redundancies built in backup systems. I mean, people do it on houses all the time.
Actually, I'm going to make it a primary system.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, most people use it as a backup.
Yeah.
Todd's going to run everything off of it all the time.
Hey,
so
I don't need your stuff.
All right. I'm officially naming it Big Daddy.
There you go.
The system. So what are we going back with then, Todd?
All right. So now we're going to, are we doing a reveal?
Yeah.
All right.
Not that.
So on this, this is the 12-volt version. Now, this is kind of what we did on your first build, right? So now we're going to go to the 24-volt build.
Yep.
And so instead of two multi-pluses, which is 4,800 watts, we went with two quattros, right? Again, 50 amp service, 2 legs. So the Quattro 5000s push through about 4,000 watts each. Mm-hmm. So we got 8,000 watts of potential of usage.
Continuous usage.
Continuous usage, yeah. So what does that mean? Well, you can run all 3 ACs at once.
Yep.
In Texas, right? And the refrigerator.
Feeling a Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that one leg will always have 2 air conditioners on it.
Right.
Right. The other leg will have 1, and hopefully the microwave is on that 1 leg.
Yeah, I've already started to look into that.
Yeah,
don't know yet, but I'm about to stare at the breaker panel.
But yeah, we can kind of move breakers. It's not a big deal. So we want to kind of even out the loads.
Right.
Right. So this will give you the ability. One of the problems that we have with a smaller system is when you're in pass-through and you have 2 ACs on because you're in pass-through.
Yep.
And you lose power. Right.
Overload.
And so the inverter kicks in, and the inverter is going to help out for a little bit, but then it says, hey, you're trying to run 2 ACs off of me. I ain't doing it. And it shuts off.
And this is exactly why we came back to Todd when we purchased our Valor, is because we ran into that problem a lot. The park we were at lost power a lot.
Yes.
And it would constantly overload. The time that we didn't know the power went off, we didn't have any ACs on because it was a little cooler.
Yeah.
And so there was not a massive drain on the system or a massive load on the system to overload when the power switch happened.
Right. And it's not a big deal then. It's once you alerted to it, you just turn off 1 AC. Right. They do have the functionality to do what's called a non-critical load, different place to hook it up. But the way our breaker panel boxes are, we really can't do it. We have to do a sub-panel kind of thing. So typically that's kind of the problem.
Right.
So we're putting in a bigger system that can still handle that pass-through. If the pass-through fails, it just takes over.
Yeah.
So you got about 80% of what you can run, full tooch if you were plugged into shore power. And for most people, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Because you got 3 ACs and the refrigerator.
Yeah, coffee pot, microwave, situationally, obviously, in those 2 scenarios. But
now you can go to 2 ACs, the microwave, your coffee pot, refrigerator, all of that.
Yeah.
And most people are happy there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's really being able to do whatever you want. I mean, a big consideration, and essentially when you're talking to somebody for the first time and they're talking about the system they want to put in, it's really about the power consumption. And so when you're trying to work on your power management skills, like, do you want to not have to think about it very much? Or do you mind playing that game in your head constantly when you're not plugged into a pedestal. Obviously.
Can I do this or can I not do this? For a lot of people, they're like, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to spend this much money and it only costs me this much more, how about we do that and everything works?
Right. It's kind of like getting the drink package on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just drink.
And then more, you're like, well, since I've already prepaid for it, I need to drink.
I got to get my money's back. Which means now you're going to off-grid more, and you're going to get off that pedestal more because you've invested in it.
Kind of the same thing with your inverter. Now you can drive down the road with the air conditioner on.
Yes.
So that way, when you show up to your site, you walk in, it's already 70
Everybody
degrees.
Sees these great pictures of all these rigs boondocking in these gorgeous locations. The reality of it is the fact that you walked in your rig and it's 74 degrees and not 92 degrees.
Yeah.
All I need to hear.
Huge. If you want to stop off, have a sandwich instead of it's already all set up.
Not resetting your clock on your microwave.
Yep.
That was one of the fun ones I didn't even think about. I'm like, oh, I don't have to reset the damn thing, thank God.
I never use it anyway.
Yeah, we do.
So
we're doing dual quattros. What batteries?
We're going with a 24 volt, and there's 3 of them.
Yep.
So it's the same 6 batteries as we did before. Mm-hmm. These are 300 amp hours. And I always go over kind of a law of diminishing returns, right? How many batteries do you need to take care of you throughout the night? Right. Whenever there's quiet hours, that's going to be usually a 10-hour to 11-hour stretch. Right. What do you typically run at night? Well, we run at least 1 AC. Okay. What temperature do you set? Okay, well, this means we're going to get like 8 hours of continuous consumption. I want to put in as many batteries to get you through those 8 hours.
Right.
Now, in the morning, sun's starting to come up, onboard generator. You may kick on the generator to bring those batteries back up. Sun takes over.
Yep.
We're putting nearly 2,700 watts. Now, when it comes to panels,
that's just a big jigsaw puzzle. That's all that
we
is.
want to put as many up there as possible because it's honestly the cheapest form for you to get your power back.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to get 2,700 watts where you had last time. What was it?
1,800.
1,800. So about almost 900 more watts.
Right.
Well, 2,700 watts for about 4 hours a day, we could take care of one air conditioner.
Right.
Just from the solar panels.
Yep.
So saves the batteries for the nighttime.
Yep, exactly.
So we're going to start off with 3. We think, we have done this quite a bit now, this build here, and most people like 3 is great. So we didn't need to put in the 4th yet. Quite honestly, weight, space.
Yes.
Becomes a huge consideration.
And that's the big thing too, is a lot of toy haulers are going to come standard with a generator. We actually purchased an off-board generator for our last coast just as a redundancy or a backup system. So, man, I can't thank you enough for not only creating a really, really cool product that, quite frankly, there's a lot more that goes into this than anybody actually realizes. We are going to do a deep dive over on the RV Shenanigans podcast more about the battery. So if you want to learn more about that and the innards and the working of that and how to maintain them and all of the things, which shocker, the maintenance, there's not much.
That's where you try and build it, right? Make it maintenance free as possible.
And so to get all that together, but we can't wait to get off grid with this thing. In our next video, we're going to show you the actual install process, which if you can see them, those guys over there are doing because they're in shot now, which is perfectly fine. And then we're going to get some consumption and really put this thing to the test. And we're going to boondock for 3 days in about a week, headed up to the Alliance National Rally. So we're excited.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
I don't know what we're doing. Crazy turkey.
I don't know. We just want to say a huge thank you to Todd and the team at Big Beard Batteries. Thank you so much for watching. And before you leave, if you could do me a favor and jump over to the RV Shenanigans podcast here on YouTube. The link is down below in the description. Give it a follow. We did splinter it off, so make sure and go over there and subscribe for us. Bye, Mom.